If you're a true Whirlwind fan, you may have seen my video on level criticism, where I criticize other people's style of criticism and lay out my own personal philosophy when critiquing levels. It's really good, you should watch it. You may also remember me briefly going over a tweet by Team Cherry, where they went on a big rant about the negative reception Cosmos received on Twitter. That tweet doesn't exist anymore. In fact, the whole account was discontinued. I like to believe that it's a direct result of my video. That being the case, naturally, means it's time for me to take the next step in my conquest. Believe it or not, when I made that video, I was largely neutral on Team Cherry and most of its members. I didn't care much about their levels, so I simply did not pay them any mind. A lot of stuff has happened recently though, which has changed my opinion somewhat. I'm sure Tidal Wave needs no introduction. It has taken the community by storm in recent times, especially with the whole fiasco about its unrated status. It did get rated eventually though, so now everybody is happy. In the midst of all this discussion, Team Cherry made a peculiar announcement. They announced a remake of the level, while the original was still hot off the press. Hot off the press, and also not at all in need of a remake, might I add. For all its faults, it's not like Tidal Wave is a bad top extreme. It is unique and it is visually appealing, so what is there to remake? The levels stand on its own perfectly fine, right? Maybe it's just me, but you have to be crazy to look at this and think, this level is past its prime, let's do a remake. One part of that Team Cherry tweet I mentioned before talks about how people kept calling Cosmos a soulless level because Team Cherry is seen as a corporate entity within this community. And with the announcement of the Tidal Wave remake, I started to understand why that is exactly. Like, what other explanation is there for a prominent creating team to remake one of the most discussed levels in the community before it's even gotten rated? I don't mean to be cynical, but to me, it just looks like they saw the popularity of this level and started frothing at the mouth. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not be hasty with our judgments, right? So how do we nail down Team Cherry's driving motivations? Well, we could have a look at how its members interact with the community and how they talk about the level creating process. To that point, here is Kulok, one of its most prominent members, talking about elitism in the community. There's this strange group of people on GD Twitter that try to be elitist about level styles, and it's crazy how childish that is. They make lofty claims about how some styles are inherently less creative or interesting. It's definitely a little vague, this tweet, but so far it seems fine, right? But honestly, it's hard to take them seriously when nobody likes their deco. Boom! Instant 180. Man, imagine talking about supposed elitists in the GD community, and in the very same breath, not a sentence apart, you shit on their decoration style. Kulok, you're doing the thing. This is exactly the thing you're trying to criticize, and you're just doing it without a second thought. That's crazy. What's even crazier is that this didn't happen once, but twice. To clarify, you don't need to be an established creator to give criticisms of a style. Anyone can. My problem is with those who act elitist or pretentious, as if they have the correct opinion on the matter, when they are often the least qualified people to do so. Again, just completely self-contradictory. Do you need to be qualified or not? It indicates a certain attitude within Team Cherry, because ironically, Kulok is being incredibly elitist and pretentious with these tweets. Essentially what he's saying is, oh, these people are bad creators, so their opinions are not to be taken seriously. It's the height of elitism and pretentiousness, and it indicates a very short-sighted view of the creative process. But Kulok is just one guy, right? And it's not like being pretentious automatically makes you a bad creator anyway. But I don't think it's a coincidence. I think I can show you that this toxic attitude permeates all the way to the very core of Team Cherry in the form of its leader, Vernam. Vorvin, what the fuck is this? You are not the fucking gangster. I am the gangster. I fuck your video. It turns out that Vernam actually saw my video and he wanted to talk with me about it. And I think our conversation was very revealing. You'll see him state on Twitter that they largely make levels for fun, but after talking to him directly, I just don't believe that. It's an open secret, of course, that Vernam pays people large sums of money to build collab parts for him, but there isn't anything inherently wrong with that on its own. Payment for services rendered is completely reasonable. However, on top of that, Vernam also seems to have a huge obsession with money and status. When he streamed talking about my video and debating me, he bragged about how much money he made in donations. You can see him posturing constantly on Twitter about just how wealthy he is. Dude is obsessed with wealth and status. And I think that is the real underlying reason he hosts levels with Cherry Team. To flaunt his wealth and status, to serve his own ego. There's not an ounce of creative passion there at all. It's very self-serving. In a word, it's soulless. This is also why Vernam has very short-sighted opinions when it comes to art. Because to him, art is just a vehicle to flaunt wealth and status. He doesn't value it intrinsically. He believes there is somehow an objective way to judge art, but when he came to talk to me about it, by his own admission, he hadn't even watched the full video. Vernam says himself that he is not open to having his mind changed, that he already knows everything there is to know.
I mean, bro, I already understood everything I wanted to understand. I respect your position about this block, about the taste
I appreciate
of shit,
that.
but you see, I
you.
see no room for discussion.
Imagine being so conceited that you already think you know everything there is to know about the subject. Again, the height of pretentiousness. At no point does he prove why his standards are objective. He just says that the people who disagree with them are stupid. Okay, let me pose you a question then. Let's say somebody came up to you and said, actually, I think this looks good. What would you be able... Would you just say that they're objectively wrong then?
I would say this person is fucking stupid.
If you want a more concise and well-structured version of the argument, I'd recommend you check out my video about level criticism, where I go into every single aspect of his arguments in depth. At the end of the day, though, Vernam will never be able to prove objectively that any given level is good. The same way he can never prove that hamburgers taste good, or that summer is the best season. The best he will be able to do is support his opinion with arguments, and you'll see him do this, but that's not objective proof. Snobbery in this community does not come from people on GD Twitter making unorthodox and quirky levels. It comes from the kind of people who make it a point to flaunt their wealth and status, to look down on others in order to feed their own massive ego, and to claim to have the objectively correct opinion while calling everybody who disagrees an idiot. And while I'm no stranger myself to calling people who disagree with me idiots, I at least don't claim to speak objective truth, and I'm always open to having my mind changed. I may have strong convictions, but that is the main difference between me and Vernam. Vernam, and by extension Team Cherry, will never create a masterpiece, because their motivation is rotten at the core. Any artistic integrity is completely corrupted by rampant greed and the virulent desire for validation. Let's go back to Tidal Wave for a second. Team Cherry has shared several progress reports where they decorated a single block, and I want you to have a look at them for a second. Now, I want you to picture what the full level is going to look like. It's not difficult, is it? It's easy to imagine, and I think I'm right when I say what you're imagining is probably not that far from what the final product will look like. That is to say, it's completely predictable. We've all seen Team Cherry levels before, and this isn't going to be any different. Now think about when Kermal would upload a preview for something like Black Blizzard. That shit is enticing, because love him or hate him, Kermal is super creative. You never know what that guy is going to do, but it's exciting to find out, because it's impossible to really create any reliable expectations. I find it difficult to maintain any level of hype for something I already know exactly what it's going to look like. I want to see something creative, something unique, something subversive. And of course, Kermal isn't the only creator that does this. There are plenty of other creators that are also very good at subverting expectations and creating something unique and interesting. Pak, Naijifu, Maxerman, CW 2003, there's too many to name, really. Anyway, you don't even have to agree with my tastes. That's totally fine, of course. Maybe you do think Team Cherry makes good levels. Maybe you are excited about the Tidal Wave remake. That's your prerogative, of course, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the whole structure of Team Cherry is based on something very ugly at its core. And I think we should at least acknowledge that. I don't think Vernam is a person with a good moral character and a genuine personality, and that shines through in the way he organizes his collabs. I have a lot more respect for someone like Mindcap, because when I talk to him, it's very obvious to me that he cares a lot about Geometry Dash levels as an art form, and the collabs he hosts are very much an expression of that. They have a creative and artistic vision. They're all doing something interesting and unique to make our community a little richer. Really, Mindcap and Vernam are like polar opposites, and I'm glad we have someone like him in our community. I hope at least that people understand now why Team Cherry is often called a soulless corporation, because that's legitimately kind of what it is. Vernam doesn't host these levels out of the desire to be creative, he does it for completely self-serving reasons. He has no passion for the creative process, and that's why Team Cherry will never create something unique. They will never create a masterpiece, because the person at the helm of the entire operation is devoid of a human soul. Their scope may span the width of an ocean, but they will never reach beyond the depth of a puddle. And that concludes this video. If you haven't seen my level criticism video yet, I do recommend you check it out because it provides some extra context and it also explains in more detail why Vernam is wrong about there being objective criteria, which I don't really discuss in depth in this one. By the way, I wasn't the only person to debate Vernam on this topic. He also had a debate with Sirius, and I wanted to bring it up in this video too, but that debate isn't available anymore. You can't access it anymore because Twitch deletes stream VODs automatically. So that's a shame. Oh well. Either way, special thanks to my grandpa demons on Patreon, Xkami, Belfry Clock, and Alfiria for supporting my channel. And of course, thank you for watching. See you next time.